Hello and welcome back everyone to Blender Geometry Nodes workshop for jungle vines. In the last lesson, we set ourselves up with a nice material shader for the geometry node to be used on the vine bark itself. Now we're going to continue on and actually clean up a little bit. So first things first, what you'll notice is that every single group input is now extended. The more we add, basically, even if it is hidden, for example, I can click Ctrl and H and unhide it. Even if it has more, whenever we add inputs when it's hidden, it just adds it as a bit of an extra over here as a list. So it gets a bit of tedious to constantly go through every single one of the group inputs and just constantly select and click Control and H to hide it, or every single one of them. So the easiest way to fix that would be to just select one of the group inputs. We can right click, select, go into select section, and then go on the select grouped by type, and then it's going to select every single group input. We can now click Ctrl and H twice, and that's all it is in order to clean up this mess. Basically, we just do that and everything is now orderly or minimized with the group inputs. So that's a very nice trick to know. Now the next thing is going to be in regards to all of this setup. We can now go ahead and go bit by bit in order to actually organize the setup. So the starting point, we already had it organized: volume generator, empty selection, and random selection. We had that set up. After we get the selection either from empty selection or random selection, we're going to go ahead and then create a curve. So with this over here, and I'm just looking, this is going to be all the way until delete geometry. I'm going to click Ctrl J to make sure everything is grouped up. I'm going to organize it a little bit like so. Density can go underneath this, or actually on top. No, underneath is better. Density can go on the top like so, and maybe a little bit more to the back, just like that. Actually, I'll just put it over here. The limit geometry can come closer. These are okay. This switch is all right. Noise is okay. So this one, we can just call it a path generator, since this part basically generates the path using the shortest edge paths, and it blurs out using the blur attribute, and it basically creates random path using the non-deleted geometry. Then we're going to go ahead and just select this, click F2, write it as path generation, like so. And after we're done with the path generation, this part was set as to trim the curve basically. So we trimmed it in regards to the length of the curve. Let's go ahead and actually just grab everything until capture point. There we go. Yep, that seems to be all right. Let's click Ctrl J, select the box, click F2, call this curve trimming, like so. And again, this is based on length with a bit of randomness added on top of it, that we multiply, and that we multiply with the length randomness added in through the math node, and based on that we trim it. So there we go. All right, we can just move this a little bit more to the side, like so. We'll actually just hold shift and just move this a little bit up higher, just like that. Select them both, SY0, like so, and there we go. So that part is done as well. And as we move further, we get onto this part, which over here we set ourselves up with merging curves to make sure we don't have multiple meshes going through the same place. Basically, we turned it into a mesh, we merged it by distance and turned it back onto the curve. We can go ahead and just join them up together, call them, click F2, call them merge overlapping curves, like so. Put them off to the side, just like that. This part over here, it's actually going to be, I will combine them all, since this is responsible for offsetting it from the original curve. So we're again grabbing ourselves the normal, from the mesh. And yeah, and offsetting it. So let's go ahead and just grab this entire section like so. Click Ctrl J, click F2, and we can call it offset from original surface. There we go. Just going to move it up a little bit. And we can actually remove this over here. This entire line is not needed. I'm going to go ahead and just make a duplicate out of this. Click Alt P to make sure I take it off from the box and just attach it over here. So making sure that we are removing this entire line. I'm just going to go ahead and just reroute it like so. Delete this point and this point as well. There we go. And that looks much cleaner. All right, so this is that part. So offsetting from original surface. Then we had this set up for creating bind mesh, turning the curvature into mesh. We were then using the setup for UVs. This can be set as UV, base UV coordinates. We'll actually remove this as well. Alt P, just remove it from the side. Just go ahead and just grab this all. Alt P, there we go. Just going to move it a little bit more to the right. Just like that. And this is responsible for giving us material and UV coordinates. So let's go ahead and just click Ctrl J, F2, UV, add material. And that's that. The bottom pieces set for leaf generation. Just going to make this actually a little bit larger. So from the set curve radius from bind mesh, we went ahead and grabbed ourselves the curve. Then we generated some points along the side of it. And we finally grabbed the collection from the leaves, from the leaf collection, and outputted it into our geometry. Before that, of course, we realized instances. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we now got ourselves a nice geometry. I do recommend you checking and making sure it works properly. So go into modeling mode, for example, going and checking how this geometry works is really recommended. So I will go ahead and do that on another type of setup. Going to go ahead and click Shift and A, use a new material, new object that is. I will actually just use, let me go ahead and use icosphere, since this has a really nice shape. I will actually make it a little bit smaller, that is. So it doesn't really matter at this point, but we do want to just see how it looks like on different shapes, basically. All right, so now I have this. I can go ahead and just click Add a Modifier, select a geometry nodes, and within here, we should find ourselves a vine geometry node, like so. Now we can go ahead and add an empty. So let's go ahead and do that. We can go ahead and just add a simple sphere on the side, like so. Here we can use empty. We can just change this up to be this empty over here. We can now go ahead and increase the length and density. And there we go, it starts growing. So now it seems like everything is looking pretty nicely. Of course, we need to make sure that the material is also set up. Let's go ahead and do that. So we can either use vine bark or vine bark morsi. We can change the density a little bit more, change up the scale, make sure the randomness is also there. And there we go, something like that. Scale maybe is a little bit too big. So we'll increase density instead. And yeah, everything seems to be working. Let's go ahead and now test out the use without empty. We need to make sure that the start points are set up. But they seem to be working, but it's only within this one point over here. I'm not sure why that is the case. I'm going to increase the length and see how that behaves now. It will decrease the length in this case. For some reason, it really wants to be closer to this area. I'm just wondering why that is the case. Not being affected by this object over here. But if I were to use empty, and no, that still seems to want to go within that one spot. We'll go ahead and check why that is the case real quick. So back within a random selection, if I were to maybe take off the subtract, start subtracting more, doesn't seem to want to work. And if I start spreading random value, that seems to want to work. If I do change the seed, let's see what happens. No, it doesn't want to change. All right, so quick thing, this doesn't seem to want to work. Let's quickly try to debug it, see what's happening with it. And I'm going to go ahead and click on to points over here, just to see these points, like so. Basically grabbing the geometry of the points, grabbing the position value of geometry proximity. Increasing the star count is not giving us much of a result. We can, for example, change the B. Let's see if that works. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and click on equal to see if that would work. And that doesn't work. Let's go ahead and move it out of the way. We can also try maybe changing the subtract value. It seems to be offsetting it, but not in the right kind of way. And probably the reason is that it's not giving us the right maximum values because of the low topology of the mesh. If I was to click and hold Control and I take this and then start increasing the amount of vertices over here, you can start seeing that it's actually getting into the shape that we want, like so. And for example, if we were to try to remove this over here, we can start seeing that it's actually going around the mesh. So the quick thing that was happening was, because we were using the original geometry, it was just trying to grab those couple of points, but the geometry itself that we were using was not simply from the geometry of the original geometry. It was actually from the volume to mesh. So what we actually need to do is we need to grab this volume to mesh and just simply put it into the group instead of the group input. I'm going to actually move this upwards like so. And yeah, I will just click and hold Control to remove this, move this to the side, place it as a start count. There we go. Just remove all of these reroutes over here. It's going to be way easier to set it up. Then I'm going to grab the volume to mesh and place it in the main size. And this should give us the right value. Let's go ahead and put it into the max. There we go. We now got ourselves the nice setup that's actually going around our mesh properly. So that is exactly what we want to see. All right, so that was a slight bit of a debugging. And now that everything is working fine, that's going to be it from this lesson. We got ourselves everything sorted. We can even check a little bit more in regards to the density, the length, and see if everything is working and whatnot. We can also see a random length. We can see the surface offset, which is always good to have, like so. The material we already checked. The radius is always nice to see. That's the radius, and radius offset, of course, for these sections at the back. All of them seem to be working quite nice. We already tested out the leaves, so that is fine. So yeah, we're more or less done with the node. I really do want to show you the extra capabilities of it. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to actually make use out of this with an animation. And it's actually quite simple. All it's going to take is just one lesson. So that's going to be it from this lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you in a bit.